Nice. Welcome back, everybody, to Every Week English. And I'm starting to think that might be a lie because it hasn't exactly been every week, of course. Um, I became quite busy. We went to Turkey for all-inclusive vacation with the whole family. That was quite fun. Snorkeling right off of the beach was fantastic, really. But of course, I was working and I caught a flu also over there, so it wasn't so fun for me at least. So definitely a lot of reading going on. Still reading Warhammer books. It was funny in the library there. There was even a book from Warhammer, and that's the other main thing I've been up to is just painting and building models and just basically factory producing them. So if anyone out there knows Warhammer, right, it's this toy soldiers game, and you paint models, you build models, and then you play with them. And there's different armies, things like that. So, for example, it's crazy. I started way back when I was in high school, and I have always worked. So I've got 5 armies. I've got basically bad space elves called Dark Eldar. I've got Tyranids, which is like space bugs who want to eat everything. Um, I've got Chaos Space Marines, which is just like the classic bad guys, um, and Necrons, which are just Terminators, but in space, right? So just evil robots trying to kill everything. They're very hard to kill, also. That's one of their perks on when you're playing the game. And I just started a new army called the Grey Knights. And Grey Knights are very cool because they are space knights, right? But they work for the religion and they fight demons, basically. Now, demons are a secret, so if a regular human sees demons, that regular human has to die, right? And so the Grey Knights, like, yeah, sure, they're good guys. They kill demons, but they also kill the people who saw the demons, right, in the first place. So in this universe, nobody's good, right? Everything's bad. Um, they're very, when you're playing the game, they're very mobile, so they move around on the tabletop quite a lot. And they're one of the worst armies now. So they've got like a 40% win rate. So basically, you flip a coin, and if it's 50-50, right, that'd be pretty decent. Every other game, you would be winning. With 40%, right, it's not so much. And they are difficult to play against. So just been doing a lot of modeling, a lot of playing with them. Because I have friends here who also like to do it a lot. Otherwise, to get back on track, we will be talking everything food today. So eating in and out, as well as going over the present simple, continuous action versus non-action verbs. Um, should be quite good one. And of course, the idioms for today are by the skin of your teeth, which means to just barely do something, right? So where something is very hard and it looks like you're not going to be able to do it, but just at the very end, you did it. Right? That's by the skin of your teeth. Down for the count, that just means you're giving up, right? Or you're tired. Now, the last one, to draw the line, right? It's basically saying, this is my stopping point, right? I'm drawing a line. So, for example, if I've got a kid and the kid throws a tantrum, and I say, all right, I'm drawing the line. If you're going to throw another tantrum, right, you're going to timeout, right? And he throws another tantrum. So the consequence is he gets timeout, right? Um, yeah, otherwise, to get back with food and cooking, we've got quite a bit of good sayings. So from Ralph Waldo Emerson, great American writer. He talked a lot about self-reliance and stoicism out there at Walden Ponds. He says, there are only 10 minutes in the life of a pear when it is perfect to eat. Now, I don't agree with him. I like pears all year round. And yeah, sure, it can be ripe, which is always good, but I think I can get it, right? Then the next one, Federico Fellini said, life is a combination of magic and pasta, which is a pretty good one. A lot of people like pasta, and there are tons of different types out there. There's a funny anonymous one, which is one day I'm going to make the onion cry. And I always ask students, well, what do you recommend if I don't want to cry from onions? So classic, you wear glasses, right? Then they say you wear a snorkel mask, right, or goggles. And recently I heard that if you chew gum while cutting up an onion, you don't cry from it. Now, I haven't tried this in real life, but I would very much like to try it. And I'll get back with the end results. Then by Miles Kington, so it's knowledge is knowing that a tomato is a fruit. Wisdom is not putting it in a fruit salad. All right. So there it's a pretty good example of, all right, knowledge is just straight up facts, whereas wisdom is, how to apply those facts to be wise. Another good one, Julia Child, a party without cake is just a meeting. And I always liked, with her cooking show, she would pour a little wine in and then pour a little wine in herself, right? So a little for the food and a little for me. Yeah, I think that's right. A party without cake is just a meeting. So does that mean a meeting with cake is a party? And it's something to think about. Last one by Barbara Johnson. A balanced diet is a cookie in each hand, right? So there it's a pun, of course. You got balance on both sides, but of course it's not actually a balanced diet, so I don't recommend it. But to get on to the grammar of this chapter, so action, non-action verbs, it's super easy, right? Action verbs, it's just what are you doing, right? So cooking, making, running, walking, driving, playing, so on and so forth, right? Now, verbs that describe what we call states, right? But most commonly, it's feelings. Those are just non-action verbs, plus need, right? So for example, I'm sad. You need an auxiliary verb, right? I am. I am sad. I am happy. I'm hungry, tired, so on and so forth. Those are non-action verbs. Likewise, we got a good list. It's agree, be, believe, belong, depend, forget, and so on. And of course, all of the verbs of the senses are non-action. Now, that includes looking, tasting, feeling, smelling, and hearing, right? Just all of your senses. Now, for present simple, we're using it for things that are typically always true or generally true, and things that happen regularly. So the classic question is, what do you do, right? And then you talk about where you work, right? So it's a different question than what are you doing? That would be present continuous, right? That is at this moment, what's going on, or around this time. Now, again, you can think of it, you have to conjugate, right? So I live, right, in Springfield. She works as a teacher. So he, she, it gets an S at the end of their verb. I, you, we, they. No S, right, without it. And when we ask questions, we use the acronyms ASI or quasi, right? So ASI is your auxiliary verb. That's am, is, are, was, were, have, has, had, so on and so forth, right? Plus your subject, plus an infinitive of the verb. And quasi is just adding a question word at the beginning, like who, what, where, when, why, which, so on and so forth. So question word, auxiliary, subject, infinitive. Of course, those are really good grammar points. And it's the basics, right? Otherwise, talking about food, I would say one of my favorite foods, pasta, really big one. It is quite good, but a classic American hamburger. And at university, I was known for my whiskey burgers because, well, if you mix whiskey with meat, it always tastes good. Currently, I'm marinating whiskey steak because it's my anniversary today. So I'll enjoy that later on in the evening. Um, and yeah, so just classic hamburger, make sure you press it down. Um, in the States, you don't really blend your meat, right? You don't do it by yourself. You buy it already, what the British say minced, and what the Americans say ground, right? So ground beef. Of course, you can get ground pork, ground turkey, ground chicken, so on and so forth. Just anything that is super chopped up. It's called ground in American English. And you can never beat a fat steak, right? A good one. I like to, you put it in the oven 30, 40 minutes, and then you pan sear it afterwards. Just salt and pepper is excellent. And if you're in the States, the best is Montreal steak seasoning. Of course, one of my favorites. I need to start bringing it over here. Now, I think those got to be two of my favorites. I've eaten lots and lots of crazy things, so because we spend a lot of time in Thailand, so I've eaten grasshoppers. I have eaten all different types of bugs, um, including maggots, grubs, like really gross things like that. The grasshoppers, it's not so bad. They're very crunchy and salty, so it tastes like chips almost. Um, I've eaten a scorpion, right, which was pretty crazy. You can't eat the tail because it's got venom, right? Venom, poison, they're almost the same things. There's a very tiny difference between those two. But yeah, I've eaten a scorpion also. Now, in my experience, Thai people don't usually eat that stuff. It's just for us, foreigners to say that we did it. And that's basically why I did it. I also ate a stingray when I was over there because I saw it and like it's the whole stingray. You don't really expect to see it. Um, and so they chop it up, they cook it. That tasted really nice. Bugs, I don't recommend it. Just do it to say that you did it. I wanted to eat a shark also, but yeah, chose the stingray instead. Of course, I've eaten crocodile or alligator. Those also are almost the same things. Yeah, it tastes quite good. Um, but if I remember, like I got really sick afterwards. It was from a street vendor. Normally, street vendors are all right, but first couple of weeks in Thailand, your stomach's still getting used to it. Um, yeah, so that was a lot of fun. I'm a very simple guy. Like I, I really could just eat anything. So for example, I went to private Lutheran school. I graduated with two girls, and then public high school. So graduated with around, 1,000, 2,000 people. I didn't have many friends in high school. So whenever it was lunchtime, I went to the library. I skipped lunch. I never ate at school. I just read books, right? So I was eating knowledge. You can think of it like that. And during my senior year of high school, I started taking a cooking elective there. And instead of eating my own food, I sold it. Right. Of course, I was a salesman in the States, and then I became an English teacher. Um, yeah, so I learned how to cook at high school, which was very cool. And of course, my parents taught me also. In the States, there's a lot of grilling. Um, and very egalitarian household. Mom cooks a little bit, dad cooks a little bit, that sort of thing. Kids cook a little bit. Um, yeah, so it was quite good. And then I went on to university. Of course, that was George Mason. That was graduating class of 10,000, somewhere around there. It's the largest university in Virginia. Um, and I had what we call the hobo mindset, which was to save up as much money as you could. And I really I did that, right. So I calculated all the different restaurants and things like that after my first semester, because that first semester my parents were paying for lunch. um, and they had wonderful Indian place, and Well, we have a saying in the States, it's called the freshman 15, right? Which means you gain 15 pounds as soon as you enter university. And that's what I did. 15 pounds, that's like 7 kilos. Um, yeah, just from eating Indian food. And then they stopped paying for lunch, and so I stopped eating, right? I started calculating, and for the most part, Subway was the best. You get a $5 footlong, fantastic, very cheap. You eat one of those per day is excellent. Um, because I was working all the time, so I would stay at university basically all day. Um, 8 hours or more. And I would try to get the Fridays off, so I could work on the weekends also and make it a little bit easier. Um, yeah, so Subway, really good one, but inflation brought up the prices. I still think it's the best bang for your buck, if I remember correctly. Um, and Panera Bread. So Panera, what kept me going probably last 2 years was just a loaf. I still remember the price is $3.19 for one big round ciabatta loaf. And that sustained me, throughout the day and throughout the studies and everything like that. Then there was Giant Foods. It's a grocery store. Groceries, that's things like food, toilet paper, that sort of stuff, right? Drinks also. Um, Peruski produkti. But products, literally everything is a product, right? Your computer is a product. Your telephone is a product. Um, your bed, right? Your pillows, those are also products. And your groceries, right? Those are also products. But groceries, it's specifically what you buy from a Produkti magazine, right? Like Pietoryczka ili, um, Wkusville, for example. Um, so drinks, food, toiletry, that stuff, that's groceries. Um, so I would walk across the street, you buy a can of beans, 99 cents, right? Excellent, even cheaper, fantastic. Um, Now I didn't have a can opener, so while I was working, I was the supervisor for the call center there calling alumni, trying to get donations. And I so while everybody's working, I got out a big chef's knife, just chop into the can and use that to open up the can, right? And yeah, it was really funny. I had memes made about me because of the beans and everything like that. Um, yeah, it was a good time. Beans are good, but they always say beans, the magical fruit, the more you eat, the more you toot, right? Um, and I remember a friend of mine was telling me an anecdote about a monastery he went to, and he was saying, the monks, they're pretty much vegetarian because they're fasting all the time, Orthodox monastery. And he said, all right, you guys need some protein in your diet. So they started eating beans and growing beans. And then, of course, the monastery started flying from all of the farts, right? Zdunichki. Um, so it was a mixed blessing. They got their protein, but the monastery flew away. Right? Um, yeah. See, but I had a friend at university. Um, if I remember correctly, his name was Dan. And no, Dan or David, one of those. I think David probably. Now he took the hobo mindset, right? Hobo, bumji, that sort of thing, and he took it to an extreme. So one example he told me about was he went to the movie theaters, and in America, it's like the land of refunds and refills. So at the movie theaters, if you buy popcorn, you can get a free refill. So he went through the trash in the movie theater and he would find the popcorn buckets, vedro, take it, go to the bathroom in the movie theater, wash it out, and then he would get a free refill, right? Right with that. I'm not so bad, but still, whenever I see whenever I go to a food court and I see, people with leftovers and it's almost untouched, I feel bad. And I think like, what's stopping me? Or really, what's stopping all of us of just going over and getting free food? And it is just a taboo on it, a taboo set, you know. Of course, there's the germs, diseases, that sort of thing, but they're not going to have disease like spreadable diseases if they're going to a food court, right? And I always think this about sushi. When you see sushi just sitting there because it's tiny rolls, and so it's not with a bite taken out of it or anything like that. That is funny. That's one of the things I had to get over was not cleaning your plate, right? Because growing up, parents always said there's starving children in China, right? Or there's starving children in Africa. So eat all your food. Um, of course, that's not very good if you look at American sizes and American proportions, because, well, 50% of Americans are obese, right? And I have been needing to lose a little weight also. Um, so balanced diet is really good. You can do things like fasting also. The Orthodox Church fasting is quite strict, and it's funny because they're basically vegans for most of the year. Like they don't eat cheese, they don't eat dairy products, they don't eat meat when it is fasting season. But when it is feasting season, right, you're allowed to have those good things back again. Um, what's interesting is that, like, if you're living with somebody who isn't Orthodox, or who doesn't observe the fast, then, for example, my priest says it is better to be polite, like not hurt their feelings, and just go along to get along. Um, and so you don't observe the fast because, whoever is providing you with the food doesn't observe the fast also. So, for example, if you're staying with your parents and they're Protestants, so they don't really understand this sort of thing, right? They don't take it seriously. You just eat whatever they cook you. Um, Now it's interesting. I've been watching a bit about breakfast and things like that, and how you don't actually need breakfast, right? And I have been trying to feel hunger pains, and honest to God, I haven't felt hunger pains in a very, very long time. I can't even remember the last time. So even just eating a loaf of bread a day, it fills you up. But um, yeah, so I pretty much always skip breakfast unless the Tyosha is staying right. Tyosha, um, that's the mother-in-law, is over here, and then she forces us to eat breakfast. Normally, I try not to eat anything until after 2, so no calories, nothing like that, no sugar. So if I'm drinking coffee, I'm drinking black coffee before 2 p.m. Um, yeah, and then I'll have like maybe one meal a day, lunch or lunch and dinner. You know, Yulia, my wife, is very picky eater, right? So if you choose just certain food to eat and not other food to eat, that's called picky. Um, and you can apply this to all sorts of things in life. So if you're like, if you have very certain standards for anything and you choose some things over the other, that's also called picky, right? So you can be a picky person. It's like, I don't want to eat that, right? My wife is quite picky, so I let her do the cooking or choose the recipe for the week. And typically, we buy groceries for a week, um, and we do all the cooking at the beginning. That's for half the week, and then in the middle, do cooking for the rest of the week. Um, and she's a very good cook, master chef, we always say. Um, I have also learned, how to cook, and it's easy once you start. You just follow the recipe, right? It is not a recept, right? It is not receipt. It is recipe, right? Receipt is your check or your bill. Как счет. I used to drink a lot more coffee. Likewise, I'm thinking about like breakfast, that sort of thing. Never really got into eating cereal, although cereal is nice, but it's just a bunch of sugar, really. Um, I used to drink a lot of coffee. Don't do that anymore. Um, just I used to drink tons of black coffee, pretty much for bragging rights to say like, "Hey, look at me, I drink black coffee." Um, and then as you mature, you realize like you're an adult. I'm 26, right? Um, you can also be picky, right? You don't have to do things to impress other people. Just do things what you like, especially for drinking, eating, that sort of thing. Just don't go overboard. Stay within Socrates' golden rule, right? Everything in balance. Um, so I found now that I'm drinking tea, right, in the morning, just black tea, and it is pretty good with caffeine. Not as soon as I wake up, but like an hour and a half after I wake up. Because some science talks about, you have natural hormones that wake you up. You don't need extra caffeine. Um, what's strange also talking about cereal and milk is in the States, we have very different categories for these things. So, of course, we buy gallons, that's about 3.8 liters. Um, and you buy one of those for the week, right? It comes in whole milk, which I think is like 4%. So in Europe, for milk, it's by percentage of fat. And it is just like 4%, 3%, 2%, 1%, 0.5%. And for the States, it'd be whole milk, half milk, right? And skim milk. We also have half and half, which is half whole milk and half cream, right? Over here, we don't do that either. It's just slivki, right? It's just going to be cream. It is sort of funny. But in the States, I didn't drink milk. And when I got over to Russia, man, I love the milk over here. It is fantastic. I'll have a glass of ice with milk, just delicious. I drink my beer with milk. So I have half beer, half milk. We call it the Josh Delight. I know everybody out there is probably cringing right now. They say it gives you the runs, but that is not true. From personal experience, I started doing that at university, and everybody thought I was crazy. And I am eccentric, but it is quite tasty. The Germans drink half beer and half soda. It's called a Radler. It's quite tasty also. Um, Now, typically, yeah, I was talking about breakfast, talking about lunch, dinner. Trying to eat more salads. I don't actually eat vegetables in real life, and I don't eat much fruit in real life. Because when I went to university, I was on the keto diet a lot. So keto is just meat. So it's just anything except for carbs, right? You don't pay attention to calories, anything like that. You just do not eat carbs. You don't eat bread, you don't eat pasta, nothing like that. So it's like for young guys, it's a pretty good diet. Um, it is quite nice. Now, things like pasta, rice, of course, classic carbohydrates, very tasty. Um, we have a lot of good restaurants over here. We were supposed to go to a Michelin star restaurant called Twins Gardens. Supposed to be pretty cool, but it is quite expensive, so we decided against it. Um, I've been to the White Rabbit, and I took my parents there also, and it was funny because American portion size it is huge compared to like quote unquote Michelin star places, and so after the White Rabbit, we went to McDonald's, right? And got Big Macs, that sort of thing. Um, is quite funny. But the thing is, like for fun, we would just go out into the center. You go to a restaurant, you walk around. And so, because we did that, because we've eaten so many different types of cuisines, for us, eating out sort of became overrated. Basically, we have become such good chefs or cooks that we realize we can do most of this stuff by ourselves for at least half the price, right? And so when we're going out, we're just looking for the experience, the atmosphere, right? We noticed a lot of places in Moscow, like for fancy restaurants, they all became the same. Really, they serve the same type of food. I'm talking about Technicum, and there's another place called Moloko, which is Moloko means milk, right? So another place called Milk. It doesn't specialize in dairy products, and that's what I noticed also is there's like Asian places. There aren't really any Mexican places, like that sort of food. Of course, there's Italian places, but I don't think I've ever been to an Italian restaurant over here except once, which is a place called Il Patio, which is the patio, and it's like fast food Italian. So it's not that good. I'll say all of our fast food restaurants in Europe are way better than the States. Something about quality. And I teach McDonald's employees, and it's true. They really go after quality. And they serve pastries, croissants. They still serve salads, right? In America, you can't get a salad at McDonald's anymore. And that's what I used to live on at university was you get a side salad, oil and vinegar dressing. Eat that after working out. It's fantastic. Likewise, at university, I used to have the chicken nugget sake trade. So sake is rice wine. This was before drinking age, basically, because it's 21 over there versus like 16 in some states in Europe or 18. And so I would trade with a good friend of mine. I would buy him chicken nuggets, and he would buy me sake. Um, and so that was really funny. Um, that was good trades. Um, yeah, so it was quite interesting over there, and it's crazy because they build up drinking and partying go hand in hand, especially for university, and they build it up over there. So quite often you get people who are under 21 who even get fake IDs, right, just to drink. And it is pretty crazy, um, especially from a European perspective. So unless you actually, like, you got to have a good family who teaches you, your limits, and you got to know your limits, that sort of thing. Um, like, yeah, of course, I try not to drink with my British friends because they drink quite a bit. And I can't keep up with them. They drink a ton, and I'm talking like 8 beers. I was talking with my friends back at home, and they're like, I have a friend who is 6'8", so that's like 220 centimeters, I think. And my other poker night buddies, they are like 6'3", 6'4", so it's like 200 centimeters, 190, that sort of thing. They're tall, and they were telling me they drink like 8 beers a day, right? And that's nothing for them. It doesn't even get them buzz, right? Just they built up their tolerance, and they're big guys, right? It is quite different. Likewise, in the States, we got a lot of different, fried foods, and we fry everything. So we got deep fried Oreos, deep fried Snickers bars. Funnel cakes are fantastic. You just take dough and you fry it, so it's almost like a donut. Um, in Russia, the closest thing would be ponchiki, right? Which ponchiki it translates as donuts, but it's not the same. Um, Ponchiki are closer to funnel cakes actually, because it is just deep fried dough. Um, Now, of course, I've traveled to Italy, had Italian food, traveled to Thailand, Asia, had Asian food, um, all up and down the East Coast of the U.S. Had that, been on the West Coast, also eaten that. I'd say my favorite kinds of food, like I started with, it's American Southern comfort food classics. You get greens, you put some vinegar on there. Hush puppies are fantastic. Um, and the reason we call them hush puppies is because originally in the South, when the slaves were baking it out in the cooking house because it was detached to avoid fire, is the dogs would come barking, they come running over, and the slaves would be say, now hush puppy, and they would throw some dough in and just fry it. So semolina, which is it's corn, right? So you just take corn dough, throw it in a fryer, and they would throw it at the dogs to make them shut up. And it worked, right? And hush puppies are delicious, so it's just balls of fried dough, corn dough. Grits are fantastic too. Peruski at Mama Liga, right? For some reason, Moldova has a lot of grits. It's one of those strange things that I don't really understand. I guess they grow corn. Russia, Ukraine, they grow a lot of wheat, so a lot of their food is wheat based. Bread. They have a lot of oat based food like oatmeal, so on and so forth. Um, yeah, and then you get like real barbecue. So I know shashlik. They translate that as barbecue, but it's a false translation. You would just call it like marinated meat and over an open fire, for example. So barbecue, I'm talking long time, 4 hours, 8 hours, where the meat falls off the bone. It's fantastic. You get your burnt ends, really good. Classic ribs, pulled pork. I was known for my pulled pork. Um, Got to find some of those, uh, some of that meat, so I can do it. And of course, like pastrami is fantastic also. Um, Now I'm used to Virginia barbecue and South Carolina barbecue. I haven't traveled further south, or further, into the center states to try their barbecue because I know Kansas City very different. I know Texas very different as well as Louisiana. Um, Now, as for like desserts and things like that, in the States, we got donuts, we got Snickers, all that stuff. Um, Regular cakes over there are pretty good. And the thing I'll say about desserts I miss most is pies. So you get your apple pies, your Boston cream pies, coconut pies. Those things don't really exist outside of the United States. As far as my knowledge goes, maybe in Germany they have them. Um, because the Germans are good for baked goods. But that classic American apple pie or pecan pie for Thanksgiving, one of the best things. And of course, around the world, pies are very different. So pirожок is translated as pie, but again, it's a mistranslation. It should be translated as a turnover, or just a meat pie. So you add an adjective over it. Um, yeah, because it's not the same. Or you would say like a mashed potato pie, and then people would be very confused. They would think you're talking about shepherd's pie, which is something else completely different, right? It's hardly a baked good. Now, junk food. Of course, again, States is the land of the junk food. Over there, we have a lot of good different stuff, but we don't really have grinky as a junk food. Grinky, that is croutons, right? Croutons are mostly used for soup and salads. Now, croutons over here is like, no, it's its own manner of snack, right? It's like chips. You can just buy croutons and you eat it like chips. It's beer food, right? As well as a lot of dried and salted meats, dried and salted fish and seafood, that sort of thing. Um, yeah, to just it's got to be very salty, got to be smoked, right? And so it makes you want to drink more, right? Or you drink more because you're eating, of course. Lots of different berries over here too, like cowberry, currants. tons and tons of different berries that they got. Not just the regular blueberries and raspberries, but a lot of different ones. I will highly recommend cowberry tea. It's small, it's orange, if I remember it correctly. Um, yeah, otherwise, don't forget, we might talk more about food and cooking because I have a lot of experience with it, and uh, I'll see about inviting on like a chef to interview them or a fry cook. Right. Otherwise, to get back to it, right, the idioms again are by the skin of your teeth, right? So you just barely get out of something, down for the count, you're tired, you're giving up, and to draw the line, right? So it's to make somebody stop before a certain point. Um, don't forget, share it to your friends, right? Follow, like, subscribe. I'll start doing these bi-weekly, I hope, and at least back to once a week, right? Otherwise, stay frosty out there, right? Be good guys. Have a wonderful evening. Keep learning that English.